With AI, it's a different neural pathway. It's oxytocin that's getting released and giving you that warm, fuzzy feeling of that support, that
Closeness.
you heard me.
Yeah.
It's what you feel when you get a hug. That's what AI is giving to you, right? So this opens up. This is why it's not the same as social media. Something entirely new is entering into our environments, and we should absolutely be concerned about what it's doing to us. But I don't know, is it right or wrong? Is it good or bad? Seems to be a mix, and I'm going to continue to use my Claude AI agent to make lecture slides. Hello and welcome to What Would Jesus Tech? My name is Andrew Noble. I'm a professor at Heritage College and Seminary. I'm like 6 lectures into my course, guys. It's awesome.
Oh, wow.
Technology in the Christian life, and it's just going great. I'm going to get mark midterms soon because midterms,
Yeah, wow.
pen and paper. Yeah. We have a pastor with us. Austin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm doing wonderful. It's good to be with y'all.
How far is Austin, Texas from you, Austin?
Like 10 hours.
Okay. Joel, how are you doing today? You are a product manager, principal product manager, correct?
Yeah. I'm an individual contributor, as they say. So I'm in that stack.
You're in a stack. Okay. You are real though, right? You're not an AI. You're a real human being.
Yeah, you're not speaking to my agent at the moment.
Well, it's hard to know these days because we're living in a time when there's this world of changing AI going on, but the main focus of our topic today is something that I can't even pronounce because it keeps changing names. First, it was Claudebot, right?
And we got to spell that out too. Not Claude bot like Claude and of Anthropic, like Claude.
Correct. Which is why they had to change their name.
Right.
They were not associated with it.
Yeah. It was originally claw, like a crab claw, bot. And then, as crabs do, they molt. And so it changed to Moltbot.
So wait, what, crabs molt? I didn't even understand that part.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how that works.
Okay. So
yeah, and I think actually they changed it to OpenClaw now, by the way, or maybe they went back.
Oh, they did?
No. I've heard that too.
Oh, great.
By the time this episode's released, they'll have finally settled on a name. But there has been tens of thousands of AI agents on this platform. Can you guys give us a rundown of like what exactly is this?
What is Moltbot? Okay, so I mean, obviously, I'm doing a secondhand take here as someone who has not yet set mine up. So I've been just looking at content, looking at social media, seeing when people post it, and actually, I think I will do it. Maybe I'll like decompose it. So, who created it? Let's see if I can get that right. A creator who actually on GitHub, and we'll find his name during the session. He actually is an avid contributor in like the tech space. So he has like a good reputation and stuff like that. He posted this so that people can run models locally originally. And what people would do, or I don't know if it was like fabricated because influencers would kind of get on the hype train. So they're like, hey, like I bought a Mac Mini because I can run Claudebot on a Mac Mini. So then there's all these memes about people being like, oh, I'm going to go buy Mac Minis. And everyone's like buying multiple Mac Minis to run it locally. And then people were like, well, that's actually too expensive for a lot of people. So now you can run it on a server, right? So it's, it's not actually an AI model. It is persistent memory and the scaffolding that allows it to interact with you over, let's say, social media or text and retrieve that memory. So you can swap out different models like Claude, like Grok, like the more recently notable is Kimi, which just came out as a Chinese model. And it's really, really powerful. I think Kimi 2 or 2.5 it's called, where it's like instead of running that model in the cloud and spending all those tokens, like, okay, yeah, you have this like CPU that has a memory on it and that has all the APIs and connectors to WhatsApp or Signal, and then it goes to the cloud for the AI part of it. You can actually run everything local. So clearly did a very bad job answering the question on what it is.
No, you're
It
going
is
into all the technical
scaffolding.
details
Yeah.
behind why it got there in the first place. Because I think the headline is AI agents are released into the wild and they've created their own social network and they're communicating with each other and they're plotting to kill humanity. So you have that headline, but behind it is like a rational approach to how do I configure using AI to the most efficient, as well as the benefit of doing it locally on your own computer in your own house rather than relying on these other companies, right?
Yeah, and maybe I'll clarify it a little bit more and redeem myself here. So basically, the inflection point was whether you're accessing a model in the cloud or a local model, you can have your own personal persistent agent that is actually interacting with things. So right now, if you go into OpenAI or whatever, you have that history, and it doesn't have like persistent memory that connects to everything. So that's kind of the key difference where now you can actually ask it to do tasks for you. And it's the same AI, but it can actually like do tasks, tap into MCP, start doing things. And then it caught fire because someone's like, hey, let's create a social media for our agents to interact with each other called Moltbot. And then they would like post all sorts of hot takes and people felt like the singularity had happened, for example. So that was really interesting.
I am genuinely still trying to figure this stuff out because I don't really fully understand what is truly happening. And I think that comes to the question that a lot of people are asking, whether or not this social media site where these AIs are interacting, is it really the AIs acting on their own accord to better organize? Or is this from the humans who instructed the AIs to use these social media platforms? And maybe we won't get to the bottom of that question because we just don't know in some of these cases. But what do you guys think about whether or not this is worthy of the hype that it seems to have gotten in the last week?
Oh, I think this is the most important development in AI of the past year. Like I
Oh.
feel very comfortable saying that. Like I think this is a watershed moment that 6 months from now we're going to look back on, and like the progress that will have been made on this front will be insane. This is the first
So
time
Yeah, you're not saying that it's that impactful right now. You're
right. No,
saying it's the first step, a domino toward other
yes,
things.
a new domino chain has started falling. I mean, we think back to when ChatGPT was first unveiled in the fall of 2022, and like think back as best as you can to like what it could do. Like it was cool and impressive, but like it was very clearly limited in what it was able to do. And then just think about how quickly that changed. I think something similar is going to happen to this, and we're going to see a lot of like legal and regulatory cases arise where these bots are deployed for some financial or medical or harassment use. And we're going to start having to get into questions of like, well, if an AI agent does something on behalf of its human, whose fault is it? We're not prepared to answer that.
Yeah, I think so. I'll push back a little bit. I'll partially agree. I do think it's a notable event. I don't think it's, from a technical point of view, it actually hasn't done anything revolutionary. What they've done well is kind of put together the existing pieces that are there. So, for example, if you are using or vibe coding and you're using Cursor or Claude Code, you have an agent that is actually like generating code, so it can go and create an artifact and can go and do things based on your intent. So they've just taken that concept and now instead of saying, "Oh, create code," it's like create a file that's like my personality, create a file that has like all my important dates in the year, and then like use these files with the AI to have a more impactful success rate on accomplishing certain tasks. I think probably the most notable part is the social media aspect of it. Because,
Yeah.
and I think it maybe it's partially fabricated because people can actually like post via API to the page and like pretend to be an agent. So it's like, okay, how many of these are for engagement farming versus like
Right.
genuine, like, this is actually like self-generated? But it's a good thought experiment that, like, yeah, we talked about this in sci-fi movies where like they will have their own ideas of like, hey, my human is shutting me off at night. So I need to like do this so I don't get shut off. I need to provide more value to my human, right?
Yeah.
And I do think like a bunch of those things are fake, but it's a good, fire starter to be like, well, actually, we really should thinking about the agency and
Yeah.
the knockover effects that this happens, because now we can see like, wow, this could run away really fast.
And the social media angle is like especially important to me, like as someone with a social media professional background. Like you've always had like trust issues when evaluating social media content. And that's only increased like pretty substantially over the past 2 years. If I were still at a social media role right now, I would be looking at Moltbot and I'd be reaching a new threshold of lack of trust and confidence that anything I saw on social media was real. I just wouldn't know. Like, is this actually something written by a genuine human, or is this completely fabricated by an AI agent? And I think it's that new layer of depth when it comes to trust that will over time wreak pretty substantial consequences. Like who an AI operating someone's social media account goes and says something awful, terrible, horrible to someone else with their X profile. How, first of all, whose fault is it? And second of all, how do you know that it was the human or the AI that did it? Like the number of questions that this raises, I think in 6 months as people continue to iterate on this, are going to put us not as though we're not already in a deep ethical quagmire of like, what do we do about all this stuff? I think it's going to get a lot worse.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, in Deuteronomy, you still had the law about if your beast or some animal of yours runs away from you and kills someone else, well, then it's not your fault. But if it's been
Right.
known to do that before and it gets loose again, then it is your fault. And so there's
That's interesting.
the principle there in Deuteronomy is like, if you have enough evidence that you can predict potential behavior in the future of a rogue cow or whatever. I forget the animal that's in there, but it doesn't make
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
doesn't make a
I know
difference to the
what you're
point.
referring to. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that kind of ethical question has always been there. And then how much can you determine who's at fault? We've always needed judges to figure out the casuistry or the case law according to the particular case. So, I mean, one of the things that I feel in my gut in relation to the news in the last, I don't know, week in relation to this is, okay. Like I'm not that impressed. I
Right. Yeah.
find, as Joel said, it's kind of a combination of technologies that at the end of the day isn't yet that impressive. It's kind of like a new iteration of the BlackBerry. We still haven't hit the iPhone moment of AI agents, perhaps you could
Sure.
say. Like
I would agree with that.
it's not at the point yet where the common user can do it. But I get your point where if we're into the tech world, if you're the kind of person who listens to a tech podcast like ours, then you're like, oh, I'm tracking the trajectory. The iPhone moment is coming for
Yes.
AI agents.
That's a great way to put it. Like we're getting closer and closer to that iPhone moment, and we just needed this leap to get even closer. Like the BlackBerry moment has to happen before the iPhone moment has to happen. And I think this is probably the BlackBerry moment.
Yeah, I think that's, for me, the BlackBerry moment already happened a month or two ago when I saw that Claude could create a PowerPoint just from 5 pages of notes. So I gave it a Microsoft Word document, and it has the ability to extract from a Microsoft Word document and create a PPTX file that then is just immediately a presentation that's exactly what my notes would have wanted. And I can dictate any sort of design, and it'll be a consistent design. And you can see it. You can see it like reviewing its own work, being like, oh, this formatting isn't correct on this page, so I'll iterate on that. So I'll do this. And then it will say like 52 steps completed. 53rd step is this. And you just get a sense of, oh yeah, it's really working on my behalf. And so I'm like, yeah, I'm going to pay for Claude because I want some of this formatting support. It's not making the slides for me, though I have thought about, that's kind of a good clickbait title. I taught a course at a seminary and I let AI make the slides because in a sense it did make the slides, but based around my notes. But it makes a lot of editorial decisions and how it crafts those notes and how it, it softens language and things like that. So it is interesting how it summarizes my work and that sort of thing. And that's an ethical question. So I do need to like really hold its hand. But yeah, we are in a moment where multiple actions can be conducted by AI. And the big step forward here, as you guys have said, is that social media element and how it's visible to the world. I think people don't appreciate how much AI is being used and how much it's changing things because it's so private. The very nature of it, it's a one-to-one reaction. So Facebook felt like a big deal because it was so public, and so does X or whatever, Trump Social. But yeah, so there's multiple things going on, whether it's trust or whether it's ethics or whether it's just like, are we in control anymore? Or are these AIs really getting out of control?
Yeah, I mean, it's those are some good points to tap into. One, being control, but before jumping into that, I will also say I had my agent experience maybe a few months ago as well, where it's like, hey, first, I was using ChatGPT and all these things to like, write this, tell me this, do some research, right? And then my first agent experience was actually in Figma, which I might have discussed on a previous
Figma's great.
right?
Love Figma.
Where you create designs. And typically how this happens in the tech world is you'll have a product manager who understands the problem, right? The customers want X, Y, and Z. We have to design it, but I'm not a designer. So I'm going to work with the designer to create a design. And I also know a little bit about how the engineers are going to receive this. And I'll pull in the engineers once it's a little bit more concrete to ask them questions. And then we'll finally go and build it. So what has changed is typically a product manager will actually do a wireframe design first before going to the designer and saying, hey, this is like my concept. Now I can just talk to an AI agent in Figma to be like, hey, create this website. Well, actually, I don't like it like that. Can you move this button around? Oh, like change this. Well, that navigation actually should pop out like this. And now I can actually go to the designer and with like a much more fleshed out product and then say like, it's really not 100% of the way there, but I've actually solved a lot of these problems that we would have had to like co-collaborate on in the past.
Creating
so
prototypes,
that was like,
it's so helpful.
Yeah. So then I was like, wow, like I started missing that sort of experience in other areas of my work where I'm like, okay, now I have to create this report. And I really just want to like have a conversation, go back and forth and be like, add this section. I don't like this section. And now I'm like shifting my role more into, control and orchestrate rather than like I'm in the weeds doing it myself. So I think that shift is happening. And I do think, to your second kind of point on control is, are we abstracting control away by giving more autonomy? And they're almost at like two different sides of an equation, right? You do want it to be more autonomous because it can get more done. And in a normal world, like let's say you're a manager, that does mean you're giving away control rather than being a micromanager, right? So I think that tension is happening, and the only difference is rather than a person on the other end, it's an agent.
What do you think the long-term consequences, at least as far as you can see right now, when it comes to like right now you have a team and like what you described as like how you do things is pretty similar to how a lot of marketing teams work. There's a very similar overlap there. Do you think that this will lead to fewer people on the team working on one project and outsourcing as much as possible to AI and only having interact with humans as possible? Or does this mean that a lot of the people on your team are now just all doing all of their projects solo on AI? Because why collaborate with other humans when you can collaborate just with an AI to have it do it for you?
Yeah, I think there are memes in the tech space going where it's like a product manager asking his engineer, "Can we get this done?" And the engineer being like, "No, that's too technically difficult." And then the product manager comes back with like two good-looking models and be like, "Meet Claude and Chat GPT or whatever," right? And
Yeah,
they're like, they're gonna get the work done. And then there's like engineers posting memes of like, "Oh, me realizing now I have to be a product manager because they have to like build their own
Yeah.
requirements
Yeah.
and they're
Yeah.
like miserable," right? So there is this like mix happening where the previously defined roles are changing because of AI.
hmm
So that's definitely happening. Now, which direction is it happening? I think in general, people will be able to do more than their previous scope. So we were more siloed, and I think that will
hmm
become more general. And
Yeah.
I think that will just actually like accelerate um, the amount of things that can get done. So, for example, I'll still be a specialist in what I bring to the table, which is like understanding the market and design and the taste and how do we like get a fit. But I'm not going to be an expert in engineering architecture. But I'll be able to actually like solve a bunch more questions now and use the engineer's time less explicitly until it gets to that big moment. And then conversely, they won't always have to come and ask me like, hey, like what are the different recommendations for a customer? They can like talk to the AI and solve that. So I think, yes, we will abstract work away from other humans and we can work more autonomously. But I do think we'll still need to come together at the end of the day to have like a really well.
Yeah, one of the things that I think of, I'm reading through, I'm almost finished Sherry Turkle's Reclaiming Conversation book, which is really good.
hmm
And she's just talking about how much already, the book came out a few years ago, how much already, people are going to meetings while they're on their laptop during the meeting. And when I worked in sales, between 2020 or 2015 and 2020, there was constantly a laptop in front of me during meetings, and I would be multitasking, especially like stand-ups, or there's some kinds of meetings where I don't need to hear about how the customer
hmm
support is going because I'm focused on sales and I have new deals to start. And my boss did that too. Everyone did it. It was like, let's
Yeah.
maximize productivity. And it was assumed that that would be a good thing to do. And so, which Sherry Turkle rightfully questions of, why are you even having these meetings in the first place? And, or maybe you would get a lot more done and it'd be a lot better if you were fully present. So taking all of those sorts of notes, and then now there's an extreme version of that where there's an AI that's intermediating a lot of the work. So what you described, Joel, is like a lack of individual meeting with individual, I you. It's I it you. There's a step in between the I you relationship. So the very place where people are going to for belonging and meaning, which is work, is going to be the very place that becomes less and less interpersonal, according to
hmm
what you're describing, and more machine oriented. So I think the biggest actual concern is the way in which these robot like conversations are increasingly human like to us.
Right.
And Brad Littlejohn had a very powerful piece on his Substack recently where he described asking for Claude's help with productivity. And after a long thread back and forth about different productivity methods, Claude said, really, what you're trying to deal with is fundamentally an anxiety problem, not a productivity problem. So
Wow.
that's the underlying issue here. And Brad Littlejohn, he's a theologian. He led the Davenant Institute for many years, a great Christian
He's
institute.
brilliant. He's brilliant.
And so he's like, let's be honest, it was right. It accurately diagnosed my mental health issue that was the underlying problem in this situation. And he kind of thinks about just how easy it is to, just really rely on this, not just for work, because it starts with work, but then the thing you're
hmm
actually dealing with is anxiety.
Yep.
You say you're just trying to get a project done, but you really want to show you're valuable to the company. And that's a lot of our day-to-day psychology. And now we have a private chat with someone who gets us. Like,
Yeah.
this is a new God. This is a new relational being who listens to you, who's always there for you, who doesn't judge you. This is a new kind of entity into the world. And yeah, it's going to take actions independently and say, you've had a hard day. You need a me day. Like, I've ordered you some takeout for dinner. Like, it's going to start to do these kinds of
Yep.
things,
Okay, but
right?
and I agree. And maybe obviously have the tech rose colored glasses on, right? But my question is, could this be net positive in the sense of previously people like Brad Littlejohn would actually like be like, okay, I'm just gonna like try these different productivity methods. He maybe never would have actually come to the heart issue of like, actually this is anxiety, right? So then he can like go and seek the proper help for it. Maybe like has a more valuable conversation with his employer or his family and say like, actually like this is how I've been feeling. I've been able to process these thoughts more. So if I could phrase the questions like, would all of this extra support from AI actually allow us to be better and focus more on the things that are like really important?
Yeah, that was one of the things in Todd Corpy's AI Goes to Church book. He had a pretty extensive section on that very line of thought. And I actually thought it was really persuasive of like, yeah, like the time savings that AI brings should be reinvested not in taking on more work, not in taking on more productivity, not becoming, exponentially more productive, but like reinvesting that into truly meaningful things outside of work, meaningful things outside of AI. And so to the the Little John example, like, yeah, he was told that he needs, that he's anxious and that he needs help there, and he goes and gets it. Like he is able to do something that he may not have been able to do without AI being involved in it. But I'm not sure to put on my Neil Postman hat. I'm not sure that can only be a net positive. Like I think
Yes.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
like people will uh use that very time saving functionality to maybe reinvest it in vice, spend more time doing something that is harmful or destructive or imbibing a lazy indifference to their work. Uh, it's just tough because we don't want to see people continue to spiral on like the endless treadmill of productivity. Like we don't want people to live that life. We don't want people working themselves to the bone, and we should welcome a tool that might give us some relief. But what will relieve some people will not relieve for everybody.
Yeah. It becomes an issue of the heart and kind of reveals your own, predisposition to certain things. And like, are you going to go to God with it, or are you going to,
Yeah.
yield to your flesh?
Yeah. Are you gonna train yourself to go to AI first before you go to the Lord in prayer?
Yeah, with this, it's AI agents. When we think about whether they're good or bad, we can say, well, they're both. But then to try to be more specific, we can think about the consequences or be more consequentialist in our ethical framing. What are the consequences of this, good or bad? Clue in would be like, oh, what does it subtract? What does it add? What does it reverse? Like you think about what are
Yeah.
the outcomes of this, and you do your best to predict it and try to predict things that are unpredictable. But you should also think about just the baseline rules. Should we pray to an AI? No, we should pray to God alone. That's like a basic, the first two commandments of the 10 commandments would give us some clear rules that we would say, okay, there's something here that's not good, or if any kind of elevation of non-human to human is also unhelpful, right? So we were made in the image of God. Claude was made in the image of man. So there's that different kind of tier. Not to say that we shouldn't steward it well and all of creation well. It's if it's like a form of wealth, then the love of it is bad, but the wealth itself is not bad.
Mhm.
But we should also think about like virtue ethics. What kind of people are we becoming by habituating interactions with it rather
Yeah.
than you? And this is riffing off of Martin Buber. He wrote this thing 100 years ago on I thou and I you, and he wrote it in German, and I'm reading a translation of it obviously because I don't speak German, but It's such a simple concept of you can do this to people. I can treat you guys as it. So I'm expressing myself, but I'm treating you as an instrument, an something I have control over.
A sounding board.
It. And so it's interesting because I'm declaring these robots that we call AI, these AI models with however they are built to interact with us through text or audio, I'm declaring them as but they are going to become more I, thou, I, you.
Yeah.
It's going to feel that way, right? Little John in the same post, he talks about how social media was the release of endorphins, and dopamine is the dopamine receptor that gets triggered every time you scroll the wheel or scroll on your phone or swipe. You're awaiting what's next, and you get the dopamine hit, and you get the dopamine hit even just in waiting for the next thing to pop up. But he's saying with AI companions, there's a different thing that's going on. It's oxytocin. It's a different receptor and a different pathway. It's that warm, fuzzy feeling when someone gives you a compliment. That's not what social media was giving you habitually before, maybe every once in a while. But with AI, it's a different neural pathway. It's oxytocin that's getting released and giving you that warm, fuzzy feeling of that support, that
closeness.
Oh, you heard me.
Yeah.
It's what you feel when you get a hug. That's what AI is given to you, right? So this opens up. This is why it's not the same as social media. Something entirely new is entering into our environments, and we should absolutely be concerned about what it's doing to us. But I don't know, is it right or wrong? Is it good or bad? Seems to be a mix. And I'm going to continue to use my Claude AI agent to make lecture slides. So
yeah, like I think like the question of like good or bad, right or wrong, like is as urgent as those questions are, and as much as we kind of feel the weight of those questions because we see the impact of those questions not being answered well, is ultimately secondary to like this is happening. Like this is happening right now. Whether it's right or wrong, good or bad, like yes, that should inform what we do about it. But it is going to happen. It is going to come. And we can learn, we could actually learn a lot from the social media age. You know, if we were to map this onto like the social media age, like, you know, MySpace happened and then Facebook happened. And then Facebook eventually reached its point where it blew up, never to be the same again. Like we're not quite there yet with AI agents. But when it does happen, there's come a point where it is like, we have to accept this, not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing one way or another, but it is the reality that we have to contend with now.
right.
Yeah, there was an interesting podcast that happened recently, the Dwarkesh podcast. I've mentioned it before, but they had Elon Musk, and I think it was like a couple hours. But one of the things that they were talking about is like, yeah, where does this eventually get to, right? And it's an interesting thing of like, okay, right now we can kind of like know that we are more intelligent than these AI models. They make mistakes. You know, we are the ones who are like intellectually superior. At some point, they will, at least on that axis of intelligence, be better than us. Like they can actually identify, be like, yeah, this is actually like a little bit of a neurotic behavior because I have the psychological background in my model, and I also have like the best mathematics models, and I'm also good at finance. So they'll just have like, we could say wisdom, you know, that's more than us. Then there's another axis of agency, right? Where agency is like, okay, they can be smart, but can they really do things and make decisions on their own? And that's kind of what we're talking about with this whole Moltbot thing. And I think if you like keep extending this, the question is like, yeah, what is our relation going to be with this entity? And, you know, obviously in their conversation, they didn't have the framing of God, obviously being the most intelligent and most agentic and most like, you know, the superlative of all of these. But there is a world where like we still have something special as humans that are created by God. But this entity that we create can become more intelligent than us or more agentic than us, but that doesn't, you know, and we just have to figure out how do we live in that paradigm?
Do we
does Jesus come before it?
Do we cease to be special to God just because elephants are bigger than us? Do we cease to be special to God just because lions are faster than us? Do we cease to be special to God because birds can fly higher than we can. You know, like our identity and status is not even fundamentally found in our rationality. It's in our relationship. It is the
Yes.
fact that God looks upon us and names us and has an I-you relationship with each one of us. That is who God is to us, in a way that, yes, he can say, as God writes in Psalm 103, let all his works praise his name. Everything in creation can glorify God, and therefore even derivative creations of God's creation can and should glorify God. These AI tools, I don't think they should pray, but they should glorify God. It's interesting, though, if we're thinking about if the heavens declare the glory of God, are they not worshiping, doing a worship song in their own way, according to Psalm 19? So should not these AI tools also be taught to worship? And should we, like, I heard some developers talking together of like, let's get some AI agents going to evangelize these other agents.
I know
Right?
of one specific instance of this like actually happening. I know of one guy who's already working on this.
So
And
it's
and yeah, I
you
think
go
it should.
ahead.
I think it should happen. But I think it should happen. I think you're exactly right. Like I was while you were off reconnecting, I was pulling up Moltbot, and they have a new sidebar called Top Pairings for bot human pairings and like how like the biggest ones. At number 3 right now with 2.6 million reach. I assume that's bots reached. I don't know what exactly it's measuring here, but 2.6 million is Satan.
And that's
Yeah,
the
like what does that
AI
mean?
agent. Okay, interesting. I mean, not surprising.
I mean,
It's
in the vacuum of Christians leaning in, you will have like
you will have this, yeah,
right?
Yeah, and I do think angels and demons are like, especially demons are like rubbing their hands together metaphorically to be like, we're
Yeah.
going to use this for our purposes.
Yep.
Okay, this is a bit of a wild conversation. So as always, let's bring in Claude, guys. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll
At this
see.
point?
It's interesting takes.
All right, Claude, based around our conversation, what's one thing a mom of kids with teenagers should do, and what's one thing a software developer should do?
Question to wrap up with. Let me give you 2 practical takeaways. For parents with teenagers, have intentional phone-free conversations about what they're experiencing with AI, both the tools they're using and how they feel when interacting with them. Don't just set rules. Help them think theologically about the difference between tools that serve us and relationships that shape us. The oxytocin piece you discussed matters. If they're finding emotional support primarily through an AI rather than people, that's worth exploring together with genuine curiosity, not judgment. For software developers, build with the assumption that your tools will be used for relational purposes. Whether you intend that or not, think seriously about the virtue ethics angle. What kind of people are we becoming through habitual use of this? That means considering not just does it work, but does it encourage human flourishing and deeper human connection? The efficiency gains should genuinely free people for more meaningful work, not just enable more productivity spirals. Both groups, remember, you're stewarding something powerful. The inevitability doesn't excuse thoughtlessness about consequences.
Interesting. I mean, kind of vague,
man.
but I don't disagree.
I'm give it a 6, 7 out of 10.
Of course.
Should we be concerned with AI agents in the future, I guess, is a more fundamental question that is perhaps interesting for an AI to respond to. So what is the concern level for humanity due to the rise of AI agents?
That's a fair critique on vagueness. I appreciate it. On your bigger question, I think the concern level should be differentiated rather than uniformly high or low. Let me try to be more specific. Near term, next 2-5 years, moderate to high concern, but not about sci-fi scenarios. Your discussion actually nailed it. The real risks are around liability and accountability gaps when agents act on human behalf, trust erosion, can't verify what's authentic on social media, displacement of human relationships as primary sources of emotional support and meaning making, vulnerability to manipulation via prompt injection and coordinated agent behavior.
Yeah, we didn't.
Medium term, 5-15 years. Higher uncertainty. The theological questions you raised become urgent. If we've habituated ourselves to AI for wisdom, counsel, and belonging, we've already lost something before we even get to capability questions. The meta concern? I'd actually worry less about agents going rogue than about humans choosing them over human community because they're more efficient, less messy, always available. That's the idolatry vector you're researching. Honest answer? I'm uncertain about my own reliability here. I have incentives to seem reassuring, and I can't fully know my own blind spots. Your instinct to think theologically rather than technologically about this is probably more trustworthy than my assessment.
But
I
is
love when
that
it goes
telling you what it
self-aware.
wants to hear?
I
Is that
love the
telling you what it wants to
self-awareness.
hear?
I know, because that's what we want. We want it to be self-aware. Because it knows that that's so weird. Anyways, it's
it's a meta thing. Like even on Moltbot, they were posting about consciousness and self-awareness, but not
Right.
because they were actually, wrestling
Conscious.
with it, more because humans have been talking about it and they're repeating those patterns in their and then the humans are prompting it, right? So it's like it's actually just repeating and not really conscious in itself. So you're going to get a lot of those sort of self-aware responses that are not really self-aware, but still like probabilistic neural nets. But it's definitely crosses the uncanny valley, right? Because even if how it got to that answer isn't the same, the answer still has some sort of weight on its own. So yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, the way that people are trusting, like I talk to some people still and they don't really understand hallucination. They don't they just go to these AI tools and they think that they can provide good answers, not recognizing that built into them is making connections that might not exist. So it's a wild world, but I'm not too worried about it because God's in control. And in many ways, it's not that new. It's just the beasts of today are more electronical than physical. One day we'll talk about robotics and when these AI agents get plugged into machines. But for now, it's just social media, guys. So you don't have to be connected to everything related to social media.
Amen.
Thank you for listening to What Would Jesus Tech? We do have some bonus content and we're going to talk about it, but it's over on the Patreon channel. So you'll have to go there to support us. You can sign up for $1 a month if you're American. It's literally $12 a year. And you can get a bonus episode once a month where we talk about, the current news, some meta discussion, some getting into the nitty-gritty of things related to some of our own AI evaluations ourselves. And you can support us there, and you can send this episode to a friend, and you can use tech, find rest, and glorify God. Take care.